Well, as the build-up for the ANC's 113th anniversary in the Western Cape takes place, the party's top brass have used the opportunity to blast the province's government for what they say is failure to take care of the poor people. The Democratic Alliance has since rejected these utterances, saying the influx of people to the province is evidence of governance. Now for a detailed discussion on this, we're joined for our panel discussion by Tandi Mahambehlala, an ANC NEC member. We're joined by Tertuis, who is DA Western Cape leader. We're joined by Buhle Booi, who's the head of political organizing and campaigns at Ukwazi. And we also are joined by Mpumi Janji, who is a community activist in Khayelitsha. And of course, you'd know that that is where these 113 celebrations are going to be taking place. But just in the run-up to these celebrations, the SG of the party having explained why it was important for the ANC to take these celebrations to Khayelitsha in the Western Cape. This is what he had to say.
We didn't have a first and second choice. We took a deliberate decision as part of the rebuilding of the ANC that we need to connect with our people. And then we need to go where people are. And Khayelitsha is the biggest constituency of the ANC in the Western Cape. You are right, our people feel forgotten and their spirits have been dampened. That is the open truth. And we are here to say to them, your movement, the African National Congress, will never forget you. The ANC is your movement. And we know that the Western Cape government have forgotten you. They have not, in fact, forgotten you. They have abandoned you. And up until the ANC is in power and pursues the transformation agenda of ensuring that we bring about a better life to all our people in terms of our policies, we will never abandon them. And that is why we have chosen this 22,000 open field, which will be filled to capacity.
Yeah, that's the views of the African National Congress as it readies itself to have its anniversary celebrations in Khayelitsha. And with our panel, I'm tempted to almost give it to Tertuis first, but I actually do want to start with the people, the poor, the community that the SG of the ANC is talking about here. And I think, Mpumi, I'll let you start. You're a community activist in Khayelitsha. Upon hearing that the African National Congress is bringing their 113th anniversary to Khayelitsha because they feel that these people in Khayelitsha need more attention that they have not been given perhaps since 2009. Your reflections on that?
Good evening, everyone. It is true that Khayelitsha is not forgotten but abandoned. Khayelitsha is just a place where I can say it's an island that is not in Western Cape. That's how DA is treating Khayelitsha. Khayelitsha is a place where it's like it's not in Western Cape. When it comes to drains, when it comes to housing, nothing called deliverance is happening in Western Cape, in Khayelitsha.
Okay, sweet and to the point. Buhle, I'll let you step in here as one of the political, or the head of political organizing and campaigns at Ukwazi that deals a lot with housing in the Western Cape. The ANC says we're coming to Khayelitsha because that is where people need us the most. Does this bring optimism to the work that you do?
Thank you, Naledi, for inviting us. I think it is very important to say that part of the drivers of inequality in society is social injustice, which we see in the Western Cape, in Cape Town. And part of entrenching this social injustice in Cape Town is how land is used by the Democratic Alliance government in the Western Cape. Land is viewed as a mere commodity that is used to further this divide that is there in Cape Town, where you see majority of people that are staying in Western Cape, rather in Khayelitsha, languishing in poverty and in squalor. because land is viewed as a mere commodity. It is being given to private property developers, and majority of our people are living in informal settlements. And I think it's very important to contextualize. I think both for the ANC and the DA here, that in 1990 and the 90s, we used to have about 300 informal settlements. That number has grown significantly to 4,000 in 2024. And that's a failure of government, both the DA-led government in the Western Cape and national government of the ANC. And I think it's very important equally to say that to address this question of poverty and people languishing in dire circumstances in Cape Town, one of the issues that the government will need to do is to address this question of inequality in the context of spatial segregation. I'm saying this because when you move people closer to social amenities, closer to better job opportunities, people will be able to live a better life because they're closer to economic opportunities. Entrenching spatial divide, you are further entrenching people into a life of poverty and to a life of indignity. And by the way, we see a lot of informal settlements and occupations today in Khayelitsha, not because people love living a COVID-19, Comrade Mahambehlala. They do not love living in conditions where they do not have basic services, where they're being told, even by the previous Minister of Human Settlements, that we will not be able to service a parcel of land like COVID-19 because it is on the floodplain, right? And what is being done by government to further accelerate the relocation of people, yes, it is being done for a few number of people, but more needs to be done in terms of making sure that people live a better life. Living in a shack is not a life of dignity. It is not a life of dignity that the ANC promised people in the Freedom Charter that the ANC would be celebrating and would be referencing when they're celebrating 113 years. So I think there's a lot more that needs to be done in terms of curbing the spreading or rather this growing inequality that we see in society today. And for instance, the DA-led government here in the Western Cape, we've made proposals in terms of how do you deal with this question of inequality. But still today, what you see in terms of allocations, budget allocation in this city of Cape Town, is that all wards in the Western Cape are being given the same allocation.
Okay.
And that can't be correct when you have a ward in Sea Point being given a million as a ward allocation, and you have a ward in Khayelitsha,
Right.
and you still give
So-
the same sort of allocation. There needs to be equity in terms of budgeting in South Africa,
Okay.
so that we deal with the question of the growing inequality.
Buhle, you're going into quite a bit of detail there, and it's appreciated. We're going to also just dig into it a little bit later on. I really just wanted your perspective on what you make around the politics of this particular moment, right, where the ANC says we'll celebrate in the Western Cape, and says because the government of the Western Cape has failed the poor. Tertuis, what do you make of those utterances by the Deputy President of the African National Congress, the SG of the African National Congress as well?
No, thank you very much. And data actually refutes everything which the ANC's Secretary General has said. Given that Stats SA has confirmed that 150,000 people per year semi-migrate from other provinces to our province, so if this is a province that, as is alleged by the ANC's SG, is failing the poor, why are so many people coming to our province for better opportunities? Why do I say this? We have seen our population increase from 2015 till 2024 of 19.6%, of which 51.2% of that figure between 2022 and 2026 is actually net in migration. We have seen in our recent adjustment budget and all the budget cycles over the last decade that the highest peak of our budget spend in terms of allocation to areas which the SG calls poor areas is actually 75% of our total adjustment budget. If we zoom into each one of our departments, the majority of our budget spend is in areas which the SG deems as poor. And why do I say that he's totally incorrect? If we have not seen wasted years by the ANC government prior to the 29th of May, we have seen them bailing out state-owned enterprises to the tune of over 590 billion rand, money which actually could have gone not just to the Western Cape only, but to the other provinces as well, where we have a growing pattern of urbanization, and that's money lost forever. Fourthly, due to the semi-migration to our boundaries, which we welcome these people, yet We are the third fastest growing province in the country, but we get the fifth highest provincial equitable share. So everything the ANC national government has done over the last 30 years prior to the 29th of May actually proves that they want to entrench poverty in areas such as Khayelitsha. But on the 29th of May, the voters of the Western Cape not only gave the DA as a governing party in the Western Cape an outright majority, didn't lose a single seat. The African National Congress has actually lost relevance in the Western Cape because it lost a third of the number of seats in the legislature. And that's a clear message from the voters of our province, including areas like Khayelitsha, where we saw phenomenal growth in certain wards, that the voters are seeing tangible deliverance, touchable change in their lives by a DA-led government. So facts back the political message, which we have been quite clear to say ahead of 29th of May. The Western Cape works because the DA works for all its people. Thank you.
Yeah, Tandi, I see you making some, I suppose, reacting to what a lot of what Tertuis has said. Some of it is the ANC, even in its leadership position prior to the May 29 elections, in his words, is part of entrenching poverty for the most poor in the Western Cape. Do you want to respond to that? And does the ANC really believe that it still has relevance, again, Tertius's words, in the Western Cape?
Naledi, thank you very much for the opportunity. Let me greet all the panelists and the viewers at home. First and foremost, Naledi, I must declare that I am a daughter of Philippi. Samora Machel is my home. I am part of the struggles of the people of the Western Cape, so I am not going to be responding and making a political statement, but to respond to the facts. And yes, the ANC is still relevant, especially in this particular province called the Western Cape. When the SG and the DP spoke earlier, I concur with what they have highlighted in the media when addressing the people. The Western Cape government, first and foremost, if we're talking about the human settlements, the Western Cape is the only province that does not have the human settlements department. But what they have here is some kind of a branch which is dominated by the infrastructure. People in Khayelitsha, for instance, you go to Ward 99, and fortunately, my constituency office is in Khayelitsha. You go to Ward 99 in Khayelitsha, you have 4,700 informal settlements, 175 toilets, 30 taps. That means that one toilet is utilized by 23 households. I'm not talking about the occupants of the household. And as a department, we give money to human settlements here in the province to do what is called reblocking, particularly where the land is private. Now, reblocking, it enables the emergency services to be able to assist the people. Reblocking enables people to have space so that at least they have a proper movement and that the streets in between these informal settlements. The Democratic Alliance in this province, the MEC will tell you now that they have underspent. They have sent money back to the fiscus because they don't even care about the people. You go to the streets, the storage is spilling. Of Khayelitsha, of Philippi, of Guguletu, it's a fact. When people are caught in fires, the status quo, it's like it's business as usual. You'll never find them on the ground until national government comes down. Remember, the issues here of basic services are a competency of a municipality, of a province. Once the national government comes down to intervene, you must just understand that there's a serious crisis where people are abandoned, where people are neglected. As a result of this, the Black Town, there's something that we call a two-tailed city, particularly in the city of Cape Town. When you drive on N2, from town, you pass Pinelands, flamboyance, you see. You go to Langa, you go to Europe. As you are driving to the airport, you see the two-tailed city of the city of Cape Town. You drive N1, is the same story, because our townships, they don't even care about them. Our townships are not developed. Our town is speaking about influx. When there's influx, you are supposed to upgrade your infrastructure. That it can be it's a non-starter where I'm standing. So once there's influx, once the population grows, you have a responsibility to ensure that you upgrade your infrastructure so that people are settled where they are. And we allocate monies to all the provinces, the budget. But if you go to our numbers today, you'll find the underspending as early as the 2023-24 budget of the Western Cape. Monies were returned to fiscus. They are not doing the reblocking. The case of Danun recently, where you are unable to move as you are walking yourself in between those informal settlements, that budget, you must ask the MEC, what is it that they are doing with the budget? What they do, they take from Peter and pay John. That's how they utilize the budget, or the budget must go back to the fiscus and unutilized like that. In an amount of about 250 million, it was stopped due to poor performance by the province. By the 31st of March 2021, these people, their budget cuts and stoppages, they went to the media to say no, they want devolution.
Yeah.
How do you want a devolution when you are unable to spend, when you underperform, when you are... Simas is talking politics here, and I think the plight of the people is not about political footballing. We need to speak tangibles. Reason why we are here in the Western Cape, we are crisscrossing all the corners of the Western Cape so that we are able to listen to the people and get to understand exactly what is it that we want. Because the city of Cape Town alone is supposed to have an IDP process where there's budget allocation for all the infrastructure, including infrastructure in the townships. You go to townships today, Naledi, you will find potholes. And these potholes you find in Philippi, you find in Guguletu, you find in Khayelitsha. If you go to Constantia now, you go to Pinelands now, you go to Tukai now, you don't find those potholes. Now, what does that tell you?
Okay, so let's bring other voices in, because you've mentioned this issue of underspending, and it's something that's been addressed by the Ministry of Human Settlements, where just towards the end of last year, responding to allegations that were made by the Democratic Alliance that the department owes the Western Cape government 521 million rand. In response to that, the Department of Human Settlements then talked about the Human Settlement Development Grant of 1.7 billion rand that was given to the province, saying that 103 million of that was underspent. There was the informal settlements upgrading program that was allocated over 500 million rand, also saying that very project as well, seeing underperforming. And Tertuis, I'm going to give you a chance to respond. But Mpumi, you hear these numbers. 103 million rand, according to Human Settlements, sent back from the Western Cape for development of informal settlements and the development of human settlement in the province. I mean, what do you think about when you hear that? And certainly, Tandi talking about the tale of two cities. Your thoughts? Mpumi, I think you've put yourself on mute.
Oh, all right. Thank you again. It tells that the difference that is happening within the Western Cape province between the Khayelitsha people, in fact, between the township people and the other class, because in Western Cape, we've got the A-class people, and then we've got the poor of the poorest people. The reason there's this much money that went back, in fact, we were with Ukwazi requesting that the Minister of Human Settlement was here in Western Cape, and then we requested the question of what did they do with the budget that was supposed to be going to human settlement, because there are no houses that has been built by the Department of Human Settlement. And then we were told that the budget went back. Now it's like amazing, or it's like a shock that a lot of money goes back, whereas there are no houses that have been built, and they have developed a thing called an upgrading of informal settlement. And even in that upgrading of informal settlement that they have developed, it's very few areas that you would go to and find that that development has happened. Even if you go to those development that they're talking about, for example, they've got a new term now, which is infrastructure thing. Even in that infrastructure, I really want to understand how they are surveyors, how they are engineers, how they employ. Because if you look at the streets in that upgrading, the street is like something of a bicycle walkway. It's not like a street where a car would go.
Yeah.
I really don't understand how they budget.
Okay.
How they spend and do their budgeting.
Tertius, do you want to take that one? I mean, the underspending, you've addressed this previously as well.
No, thank you very much. And it's quite interesting listening to our community members' inputs. Firstly, we need to understand that the Western Cape, like any other province, 95% of our entire government budget comes from national. Now, in 2021 and 2023, the National Minister of Finance coined something called fiscal consolidation. And even though we'd already submitted our business plans for the Informal Settlement Upgrading Partnership Grant, which is the one grant, and the Human Settlements Development Grant, both our grants were cut unilaterally, even after we had submitted our business plans, and all our plans were done accordingly. Later on in the same financial year, we had to adjust again. Our infrastructure and human settlements is part of the infrastructure family. Hence, we merged the Department of Human Settlements in our province with the Department of Transport and Public Works. It made logical sense because human settlements needs roads, it needs other bulk infrastructure, which is sometimes not covered by these grants. Hence, we are the Department of Infrastructure. And yes, human settlements is a branch, but part of a much bigger family to ensure effective governance. Now, when you do planning in infrastructure, it's long-term planning. You submit your plans to the national department, given that 95% of our entire budget as a province, even our human settlements component, does come from the relevant national department. And when you have in-year cuts, it does have a knock-on effect on your business plan, on both our business plans in this instance. When you then have another cut and you do request a rollover, which was not granted for certain projects, then you either give money back, which we needed to do, given that other projects were not seen as fit so we could reallocate those funding. Unlike other provinces, we do not do fiscal dumping in the Western Cape. We are quite transparent and honest. And fourthly, I think what's most important regarding the budget cuts which we have experienced, again, the Western Cape is not the only province, but the implication of the fiscal consolidation, given again by poor governance at the national level over many, many years, that had a massive effect on all provinces, not just the Western Cape. The only difference here is that we've been upfront and honest about the challenges that this has posed to the infrastructure sector in the Western Cape. Yet, when we look at the current financial year, which my colleague, the Deputy Minister, was alluding to, we are well on track to spend both our grants. The City of Cape Town is spending all of their grants. But the community member also referred to the City of Cape Town. Again, each ward in the City of Cape Town gets a ward allocation, which is separate from all their departmental budget allocations. And again, if you zone in and zoom into the budget expenditure of the City of Cape Town, more than half of their budget goes into areas which does need upgrading. But when you contest with criminal elements, and Khayelitsha is not immune to what I'm talking about, projects were stopped, projects were halted, projects needed to be delayed. It's the very same people who the provincial government and the City of Cape Town seek to help, who sometimes actually prohibit us from spending in these areas or for us to effectively deliver services. And my question to the African National Congress, because all of those areas are basically their wards, where is their councillors? Why are they not addressing this? Where are they to assist their government? Because they are part of the City of Cape Town Council. And I have multiple meetings with many of these ANC councillors saying, guys, please assist us. You were elected to serve your people. Yes, you might be an opposition party in the city of Cape Town, just like you are in this province. But by working together, we can actually ensure that the objectives of the national government and the provincial government does actually happen. But when the same people who government seeks to help are a hindrance in their progress, then there is a big, big question mark. And the issue of underspending is being effectively addressed. We will see that in our end of March 2025 numbers. This is the current financial year, because we had to adjust and adopt. But in the Western Cape, we have the ability at the provincial level to do that. In the city of Cape Town, they have the ability to do that, just like in all areas. And I need to reiterate, 75% of our current adjustment budget, which was tabled in November, is actually funding going to these poorer communities. The city of Cape Town did the same in the adjustment budget. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I want to take a short break. When we come back, Buhle, I'll give you an opportunity, because certainly now we've done a lot of number crunching and talking about budget allocations, and obviously the African National Congress, as represented this evening, talking about how allocations do come from national towards the Western Cape government to improve what many are calling spatial apartheid in the Western Cape. But we'll get your analysis on it, Buhle, on the other side of this short break. You're still watching Newsfeed PM, the late edition. Remember, we're taking your calls as well, right? The African National Congress deciding to run and host their 113th anniversary in Khayelitsha. The Deputy President of the party, as well as the Secretary General of the ANC, saying that the poor in the province have been neglected. Give us a call, 011-594-6010. Send us a WhatsApp, 072-110-5584. More on the other side of this.
People here in Khayelitsha, as we talked to them in the churches yesterday, we talked to them in the streets, they are very much happy. And they tell us their stories. They don't have land. They don't have houses. They don't have ablution facilities. They are regarded as refugees here in the Western Cape. They are in fact described as refugees here in the Western Cape. In Khayelitsha and Kukuletu, in Philippi, in Mitchell's Plain, in Bonte Yevel, our people are regarded as refugees in their own country, in their own province. We are not just here to rekindle. They tell us that they've got needs and they need our support. ANC indigent policies implemented countrywide are not implemented here in the Western Cape. Indigent policy that ensures that they've got access to free basic services.
It certainly is one of the talking points of the evening here on Newsfeed PM, the late edition. We're looking at the ANC hosting its 113th anniversary celebrations in Khayelitsha. The arguments you've just heard there by the Secretary General of the party, who some of the leadership in the party, as well as the Deputy President, having reiterated that they feel that the poor in the Western Cape have been neglected. We continue with our panel on it. And of course, we also are taking your calls on 010-594-6010. Let's take a look at some of the WhatsApps that have come in. That number, 072-110-5584, to send us a WhatsApp. Margaret says, good evening. The Western Cape fails the poor big time, only catering to the rich. Please come to Paarl and see how our people live in the city of excellence in Drakensberg municipality. You can see this all over. They only worry about nice roads and expensive security complexes that the poor can't afford. Remember, God is watching. Margaret, thank you so much for that WhatsApp. Lysia in Welcome says, Naledi, the DA has never cared for blacks. Those who are benefiting from the Democratic Alliance is simply because they happen to be residing among the whites. Where there are no whites, forget. All right, so what's up? It's coming. Mrs. Davids, it says, provinces under the ANC, we find people still sharing water resources from dams with animals. No service delivery in almost all municipalities. The country is filthy, yet the ANC portrays themselves as leaders of society. Absolutely not. And Apostle Lakim Guni says, hi Naledi, the DA in the Western Cape service delivery is for white people only. They don't care about the poor masses of this country, and they enrich the already rich and themselves. Keep those WhatsApps coming in, 072-110-5584. Buhle, I'm going to let you get in here, because there is also the point that has been raised by one of those WhatsApps, and that is, well, conditions in the other 8 provinces for the poor are not necessarily ideal either. And perhaps there is something to be said about the focus that is now given to the Western Cape when it is a reality. Water scarcity, service delivery is a problem in many other parts of the country. But you wanted to touch on this issue of allocation. And perhaps if we will look at the issue of allocation, let's talk about also would government, when money is sent back by the Western Cape government, where government nationally then moves that money to.
No, thank you very much, Naledi. I want to start here. So in isiXhosa they say that imbezi, and this is a classic case of what we're witnessing here between the DA and the ANC. You know, part of the problem is that I spoke about spatial segregation as a major contributor to the problems that we're facing today. People are plunged into life of poverty because of apartheid and spatial segregation, which is prevalent today. And what happens is that there is a failure to redress this spatial segregation, and by virtue of that, to try to elevate the standard of living of our people. And the attempts that have been made have been through the social housing to try to bring people closer to city centers, to try to bring people closer to social amenities. But even that model of housing that tries to undo the legacy of apartheid is not being funded at a national level. And that's a crisis that we're facing. But coming to the province, you have a situation where there's budget allocation. Minister Godongwana spoke to this thing to say that across the country, 120 billion rands is being returned to treasury, and that's money that is meant for infrastructure. Yeah. And there isn't a crisis. There's a crisis of spending in this country, and that's what we're facing. And Minister Godongwana came back again to say that the DA, the Western Cape provincial government, cried about budget cuts, and they allocated further 1.6 billion to them for infrastructure. And 1.2 billion of that money was used was spent on salaries of Western Cape government officials. And that's a crisis. There's a crisis of priority in terms of spending in this country, both by the DA and the ANC. So I'm saying there's that crisis that we're dealing with. And again, I'm saying that part of addressing this crisis, you need to deal with the land question. That's the primary question that we ought to deal with. And the ANC, even in the Freedom Charter, they are promising people that people must occupy, people will have a right in access to housing. But the very same ANC and the Democratic Alliance are the first one to criminalize poor people who by no means of their own or by making of their own are finding themselves in occupation, but they're being called criminals. And both the ANC and the DA are currently agreeing on the amendment of the PI Act that will further criminalize poor people. And that cannot be acceptable. Both these parties are responsible for the crisis that we're seeing in society today. They are both responsible for people that are in Khayelitsha that do not have basic services. Year in, year out, we know, by the way, we know every year that there will be fires in Khayelitsha. We know that there will be fires in Danun. But there isn't a proactive response to deal with this crisis. The Disaster Management Act in the Western Cape mandates the provincial government and the city to proactively plan for disasters, but they're not doing that. They're not coming with plans in terms of proactively dealing with these things. And every year they act as gift of the givers, bringing blankets and all of these things to people. And that cannot be acceptable in a government that is meant to be proactively planning for the poor. And I think one of the issues, and the last thing that I will deal with here, is the question, and I'm saying that land must be made available to address the question of inequality in society. And now people in 1994 were promised that they were going to be given houses. And the state and national department is taking a shift to say that we no longer have capacity to deliver RDP houses to you or BNG housing to you. We'll only focus on the elderly and the people living with disabilities, and we'll do certain services. But there's no one that is saying where will the money come from in order to deal with certain services that the government is proposing.
Okay.
And they'll continue if they're not making allocation and budget available for certain services for right to self-build, they'll continue to plunge people into a life of informality. People will never leave because there isn't a plan that is being made to deal with this crisis. People are saying that we do not want to live in informal settlements. We do not want to live in floods when it's raining.
Okay.
The government must make budget available to address this question of sites and services so that people have the right to self-build, so that people are able to build housing to the standard that they're able to.
Okay.
Because the crisis that we have here in this country is that it's growing at 178,000. We have a crisis of people of 3.5 million people that are on the housing backlog. And to deal with that, you only deal with it in the perspective of sites and services that you're not financing properly.
Okay.
You're only contributing to inequality, and that cannot be acceptable.
All right.
And government must its priorities in terms of dealing with this housing crisis.
Buhle is essentially saying the DA, the ANC, both parties need to come to the party, if you will. But we're taking calls, 010-594-6010. We've got Jethro who's calling in from Alexandra. Jethro, good evening.
Good evening, my sister, and compliment for the news.
Compliments, my brother, compliments. What are your thoughts?
No, my thought is about, we've been fooled for enough and for ages. I mean, why only now ANC can notice that there's issues or there's problems in Western Cape? I mean, ANC, they must just keep quiet and do the right things. Remember, the ANC has been in government for 30 years. Why only now they're talking about Khayelitsha? I mean, I'm going to give you the picture. I mean, the very same ANC that is talking about Khayelitsha is being neglected. What about us in Alex? I mean, when Khayelitsha and Alexander, it's the same thing. And who's ruling here in Gauteng? That's the ANC. And currently now we're under the GNU. These people, they must sit down and stop playing politics. And this thing of that the deputy president come on the national TV acting like he never been in a government in Gauteng. He failed us. What are they going to do for people of Khayelitsha? I mean, it's only a talk show because they wanted to have a big cake there, and then after next week, Khayelitsha people, they'll be on the street again. I think that politicians must stop playing games, and they must know that we need a service delivery. I mean, it's 30 years, you go to corporates, Komadibe, my sister, go and see what is happening there. There's no water. Since the so-called ANC, they're in power, there's no water. I mean, you go to the same province, Kapasis, that crisis has been there in Khayelitsha where there's no services. Why only after 30 years we're still discussing the poor service delivery? I mean, it's quite disturbing, South Africans.
Yeah, Jethro, thank you so much for calling in. Very strong points there. Jethro calling in from Alex. Jack is calling in from Cape Town. Jack, good evening.
Yes, good evening. I'm calling from Mandalay, and I'm talking about the DA that is claiming that they are serving the community in the Western Cape. And now I've gotten evidence. Like, for instance, I'm paying my rate every month. Close to, I was paying 2,000 per month. And now when we as the people, we actually did a borehole, like applying to do a borehole, and then we starting having the boreholes. And the Western Cape actually introduced, that means we have to pay more, 50 rand on top of the bills that we are paying. And now in the streets in front of my house, every month I almost having like a spilling drain. And then I spend actually close to 500, a call to the Western Cape government. And I wrote an email to Premier Windy to complain about the the services. They only took about a month, and when they responded to me. So it's a problem. The spilling of drains to Khayelitsha, it's not only Khayelitsha. You'll find that in Mandalay, you'll find in Philippi, you'll find also the potholes on the Lansdowne Road, in all streets of the, that means surrounding Khayelitsha and Mitchell's Plain, you'll find the potholes. We're repairing our tires on a number of days. It's worse when it's rain and also you'll find all those drains.
Yeah.
So it's a problem in the Western Cape, and
Sure.
we're paying a huge rate, and the DA is only looking after Sit Point and all those areas in the suburb.
Yeah, Jack, a community member, speaking for the challenges that he faces in his own community. I'll take one last caller. Chris is in Kempton Park here in Johannesburg. Chris, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
Yes, I once stayed in Cape Town. What the people are saying about Cape Town is very mild. If you want to see that Cape Town is a country of two worlds, go to the other beaches in Cape Town and go to Monabisi Beach, where black people are confined, where they go out for holidays. You'll see how sorry it is. But I feel the ANC is also to blame because systematically they knew what was happening. Now, 2025, they come here and play political games as if they are not in bed with the ANC in the national government. If you check the apartheid, they built the Val Dam today in Gauteng. There is no city planning that shows that the city is growing. There is not even a new dam that was built by the Democratic South Africa. Each and every rainy season, when the dam is full, they open the gates and the water is saying bye-bye, and they celebrate that.
Okay.
This was an apartheid system of saving the dam, but now they're killing the towns because why? There's no continuity.
Yeah. Chris, thank you so much for calling in. I'll take just one more. Peter is, where are you calling from, Peter? In Khayelitsha. Okay, Peter, you're in Khayelitsha, where the ANC celebrations will be taking place. Good evening.
Good evening to you, ma'am. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much for calling. What do you make of our discussion?
No, I just want to say also I agree that the city of Cape Town has got the two service delivery patterns. You must go to Hout Bay. There was money that was made available by the national government for the Hout Bay people so that they are not affected by fires every summer. But ask the ABC, what happened to that money? What happened to that idea? You will hear the answer. Thank you.
Peter, thank you so much for calling in. Peter's calling in from Khayelitsha. We're going to have to wrap it up, but I want to get final thoughts from you, Mpumi. There's of course, the thoughts that have been shared by Tertuis of the Democratic Alliance and as well as Tandi Mahambehlala, who's an ANC NEC member. And one of the things that Buhle talked about, Mpumi, is that both parties need to come together. A caller earlier saying, we're talking about two parties that are part of the government of national unity, and yet on the issue of service delivery, perhaps for the poor in the Western Cape, sitting on opposite ends of the discussion. What is your message to both parties, Mpumi? Please do switch on your mic. Yeah.
All right. Yes, both parties do need to come to party. But then the issue of inequality in the Western Cape is there, and it's the reality and it's the truth. It's the thing that is happening in the Western Cape. Because in the Western Cape, if you go to the Northern Peninsula and the Southern Peninsula, it's very different when you go to the metros. It's not the same. Even if you look at the housing in Durbanville, and then you look at the housing in Khayelitsha, it's totally different. Even the square meters of the structures, it's totally different. When you go to Durbanville, you won't even see a shack. But when you go to Khayelitsha, Philippi, when you start to enter in the township, that's where you start seeing shacks. And that's where you start seeing spilling drains and rubbish on the road. When you go or drive on Stellenbosch and Simonstown, you don't even see a paper on the road. But when you enter Khayelitsha and when you enter Philippi Kukuletu, there's not even a bin in the street on the pole. If you drive through those areas, like the suburbs ones, on the street poles, there are bins so that if you want to throw, you can throw. Yeah. But in the township, there's no such thing. In fact, if you write to these offices, I wrote to Tertuis. I never even got a response. I wrote myself, I know. If you write to them or if you phone them, you're complaining, an answer will come after a very long time, or it won't even come. For an example, I've got an email and I've got an evidence that I wrote to Tertuis and I never got a response.
Okay.
And we had a challenge in our own community.
All right, I need to give both parties an opportunity to give their final thoughts. Tertuis, what do you want to leave us with? I mean, there's also the issue of when the ANC has these celebrations in Khayelitsha. Will you be there? This is after a partner in national government of unity. Did you see Mpumi's letter? Could we see the ANC and the Democratic Alliance holding hands in Khayelitsha?
Well, no, thank you. And I do note Pumi's comment, but I get thousands of emails and I do respond in our office within a record time. So if we have not responded, I mean, she can just resend me the email again, which will be a very odd thing that I did not respond. But in terms of the quality of life of those that live in informal areas, not only in Khayelitsha, but across our province, there are two key indicators which measures the efficacy of budget spend by a province in and amongst its municipalities. It's called the Gini coefficient, which is an indicator of the equality distribution in a province in terms of income. The Western Cape is at 0.59. It's even lower than the national average, which means our policy in that case is working as the governing party of the Western Cape. Then you have the Human Development Index, the HDI. Again, this is an international indicator which measures the quality of life of citizens in a country, in our case, in a province. And it has increased from 0.71 to 0.76, indicating, again, it will be higher than the national average, which means that any citizen that lives in the Western Cape is seeing a better quality of life. And with 150,000 people semigrating to our province, does that speak to that reality? Can we do more? Yes, we can. And which is why on the 29th of May, voters at the national level sought to change the way that this country is governed, and there is a government of national unity. From 1994 until the 29th of May, midnight 2024, we saw one party totally dominating the national government structure, introducing very, at times, populistic policies, which has had a lifetime effect on a lot of people's lives. But we are not talking post 29th of May. There has been a change at a national level, which my party is part of, and we are contributing to that discussion. We are awaiting the national dialogue. It will be happening later on this year, as President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced. But the discussion must now be beyond race. It must be, how do we use the limited resources we have nationally? How do we divide it equitably amongst all 9 provinces to change all of our people's lives?
Yeah, okay.
But to do so in a legal manner. Thank you very much.
All right, I'm out of time. Tandi, your final thoughts.
Thank you. Naledi, one, I think Ubuhle needs to understand that to provide democratic and accountable government for local communities, it's a competency of local government, not a competency of national government. And two, we are sitting with an MEC now that refers to the people as these people invaded our province. That alludes to what I had raised earlier on, Buhle, that the attitude from the government of the day here in the Western Cape speaks volumes for itself. There is a Mr. Haka, a person that is living with disabilities who lost his leg, whom this government refused to finish his house until the national government and the national parliament had to intervene, and his house was only completed now. I'm talking about a project of like years ago, 2014.
Okay, sorry, Tandi, I'm running out of time. Apologies. I'm going to give you just 30 seconds to talk about, for the people of Khayelitsha, they want service delivery. And the requests are for both parties. The chances of GNU partners being together in Khayelitsha slim to none?
There is no GNU partners that will be in Khayelitsha. The birthday is the birthday of the African National Congress. And the African National Congress is here to address the plight of the people, which the Democratic Alliance has failed to do. That's why the spillage of sewages in all around the city of Cape Town. The councillors of the ANC, which the MEC is referring to, they've been the frontline detachment for the people of Khayelitsha and the city of Cape Town.
Okay.
But the sabotage by the city of Cape Town, which is failing our people and failing service delivery, it's an issue for human rights. Perhaps it would be better if people and ourselves as ANC, we approach the human rights, because basic services is a human right issue. And by constitution, this government is supposed to provide to the people the human rights, and the MEC has alluded, in fact, conceding to the fact that they have been referring the money back to the fiscus. Why? The question is why? Because that money is meant for the people of Khayelitsha, for the people of Philippi, for the people of Gugulethu, but because they don't care about our black townships and our black communities, they rather send back the money to fiscus.
All right.
So it's time to wake up and make it a point that we are holding this government of the Democratic Alliance accountable in unison with our communities. We are here to do that.
Well, we've got 5 days until the ANC celebrates its 113th anniversary in Khayelitsha in the Western Cape, and I imagine this conversation then going to be continuing for the next 5 days. But thank you so much to our panel, Tandi Mahambehlala, who is an ANC NEC member. Thanks as well to Tertuis, who's the DA Western Cape leader. Thank you to Buhle Booi, the head of political organizing and campaigns at Ukwazi, and thank you so much to Mpumi Kyanji, speaking to us directly from the community that will be hosting the ANC. She is, of course, a community activist in Khayelitsha. Keep the WhatsApps coming in, 072-110-5584. More news on the other side of this short break.